It was absolute chaos as Luke Lilledahl was upset by a fellow Penn State teammate, and man, Aaron Nagao just can't catch a lucky break.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling, and as always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State Wrestling, as we are breaking down the Army Black Knight Invitational. We get some answers, maybe even some more questions about the lineup after this weekend. Cole Mirasola creates some more separation against Lucas Cochran. Maybe PJ Duke and Joe Sealey don't have enough separation at 157. That one was closer than people anticipated. We got to begin with the lighter weights, though, as Aaron Nagao, another unlucky break, suffers an injury at the Army Black Knight Invitational. But Luke Lilledahl, upset by fellow Penn State teammate, true freshman Nate Desmond. Whoa, does this create some controversy here? And does it beg the question that Penn State might make a move to really shift its lineup around if Aaron Nagao can't go for the foreseeable future? Does this bring Braden Davis back into the equation? All right, let's start with Luke Lilledahl for this segment. Lilledahl being upset. It's surprising, obviously, because he held his own against someone like Spencer Lee on the freestyle circuit. I understand that. But Lilledahl to lose 5-3 to true freshman Nate Desmond after Lilledahl came in with the pedigree that he did, being one of the top pound-for-pound recruits in the entire country, the top pound-for-pound recruit in the class of 2024, according to some outlets. And Nate Desmond, who is still a respectable commit for Penn State, he is one of the better pound-for-pound recruits. He was roughly around the top 30, but did win a national prep title once upon a time in his junior year of high school, and was dominant in the Pennsylvania State high school ranks as well. But Lilledahl, there still should be clear separation, right? He shouldn't be upset by Desmond like that. Does that mean his lineup spot is up for grabs? I won't go that far, but it does make it intriguing, especially with Aaron Nagao sustaining an injury that did not look good. Now, at this moment in time, I can't confirm it, and we're not going to get to talk to Cael Sanderson because it is holiday break. It's Thanksgiving break this week, so there's no media availability. We're going to have to wait and see what Nagao's status is moving forward. But it did not look good. And does Desmond actually does it allow Penn State some flexibility here to where Braden Davis can still redshirt? You bump up Marcus Blaze to 141. You move Lilledahl to 133. You move Desmond in at 125. I don't think Penn State's going to go in that direction. As much flexibility as it offers for Penn State, these guys are locked into their weight classes, right? Okay, so Blaze is training at 133. For him to go up to 141, even though he did wrestle that roughly 65 kilos, is give or take the equivalent of 141 on the freestyle circuit. Still, Blaze eventually, I think, will be at 141, just not this season. It's the same thing with Lilledahl. Lilledahl's been training at 125. So for him to go up to 133, that's a disadvantage for both of them for wrestlers that are already at those respective weight classes. So Nate Desmond just speaks volumes about the depth. And for a wrestle-off like this, and it was great to see because I think it was last year that Cael actually forfeited a couple of these, but he let them all play out this last time. Like, he basically just conceded that, hey, there are two Penn Staters in this final. We have some wrestle-offs that we want to see. We don't need to see this one. We saw them all. And Desmond winning 5-3. Hey, maybe he just had the better game plan. Maybe he was just feeling better on that given day. But that's something to continue to just monitor overall, because Desmond, I don't think, should be an afterthought. He's someone that came to Penn State with the intention of getting into the lineup sooner rather than later. We talked about it on this. I've interviewed him on this podcast. Desmond operates with that kind of mentality. So it is promising to see that at a moment's notice, you have someone that is still an anchor in the lineup if Lilledahl needs a night off, or again, I don't want to speak it into existence, but you just have the depth. You have the insurance at pretty much all of these weight classes. Okay, so then we get to Nagao specifically. Nagao was wrestling great. It's not the most elite competition. It's not the toughest tournament that Penn State's going to be at. Again, the toughest opponents are the Penn State fellow teammates themselves. But Nagao suffers an injury in the final. It's an upper body injury, something that he actually had, again, because I don't know the specific details, but Nagao did have an upper body injury that kept him out all of last season. And was that re-aggravated? Is it something new? Okay, it's something to wonder, to ponder, which means that this is not good. This is not good for Nagao. Nagao, and it's heartbreaking because Nagao just worked his way back to get to this point, to win the lineup spot at 141, and then circumstances just take it away. For Penn State, though, you have Braden Davis. There's not much now. Nagao's the starter. There's only one starter. Not much separated these two. But if Nagao is out for the foreseeable future, this is what it's going to look like. If they can, this will be the telling part, because they do have depth at 141. Cael Sanderson can hold his own at 141. We've seen him wrestle for the past few seasons in a couple of spot starts. He's not exactly as elite as all the other wrestlers that are in the starting lineup, but he's still in the Penn State mat room. He's a talented wrestler, but not to the caliber of Braden Davis and Nagao. If Nagao just needs a few weeks or maybe a month plus, then that's what we're going to get our answer based on that. So the next couple of dual meets are going to be the ones that are telling. If Nagao is out long term, they're going to go with Braden Davis. If Nagao just needs a little bit of time off, kind of similar to Josh Barr, then Penn State's going to go with Cael Sanderson initially, because the second you wrestle Braden Davis in a dual meet or attached in a tournament, he loses that red shirt. So if the intention was to redshirt Braden Davis, and now that's off the table because you have your answer definitively that Nagao is not available, that's going to be the telltale sign, is that Cael Sanderson would wrestle. If it's a short-term injury, Braden Davis obviously is going to wrestle. If it's a long-term injury, going back to the depth, Penn State is too deep at all of these spots with someone that is comparable or right there that can get better at any point in time. And don't forget about Masanosuke Ono. The intention is to redshirt him, but in theory, he could be a contender at 141 if Penn State decides to go in that direction. I don't think they will. They plan to redshirt him still, but he is also an option at 141. The lineup going forward, though, at those lightweight spots, Lilledahl, Marcus Blaze, maybe Braden Davis, to be determined, but I just feel for Aaron Nagao at this point. Just can't get a break. Injuries have certainly derailed a high upside career that Nagao would be having at this point in time. I just wish him the best. I hope he's okay. I hope he's back in the lineup, but we will see in due time what's ultimately going to happen here for Penn State. Now, we'll continue with these lineup battles that unfolded, because we saw a bunch of other Penn State wrestle-offs, including PJ Duke. First time we got to see the Penn State debut for PJ Duke. It wasn't that definitive of a victory against Joe Sealey. Why was that? We'll talk about that next here, coming up on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. You can upgrade anything. Are you thinking dining chairs? Maybe you want a new rug? From Wayfair, it can completely transform your room. And you're not going to believe how fast everything ships, and just in time for the holidays. And browsing through their site, it's easy to find the pieces that actually fit your style. Nothing generic, just quality designs that will feel personal. If you've ever hosted family for the holidays, you know how much of a difference a few new touches can make Wayfair makes that easy. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head over to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's 70% off. That is WAYFAIR.com, wayfair.com. The sale ends December 7th. PJ Duke and Joe Sealey, Cael Mirasola, and Lucas Cochran. Two wrestle-offs that I had circled for this weekend. And I imagine that most people, or a good portion of people, probably sat back and said PJ Duke will, the major decision, this will be a double-digit victory for him, or at least something decisive, right? And it was ugly, 2-1. And the only reason Joe Sealey lost, it's not PJ Duke didn't get a takedown, didn't win on his own accord. Joe Sealey, the refs are being a little more strict with this. They are going to call stalling if they notice you backing up at all, because I thought it was really dicey. I did not think that Joe Sealey backed up all that much, but it was enough to warrant a stall call. About 20 seconds left in the third period. So PJ Duke's like, okay, I got to win here since Sealey apparently backed up and he's going to get a stall. 2-1's the final score. Some people are taking this a step forward, further to say that, well, PJ Duke's just not that good. PJ Duke's overrated. No, I think it's that Joe Sealey himself is actually that much better. Some people forget that Sealey was a former top 3 pound-for-pound recruit in his own right in that class of 2024. So Luke Lilledahl, same thing, conservatively inside that top 3. Guess who was alongside him? Joe Sealey. Penn State, again, has the depth. You have PJ Duke, Tyler Casack, and Joe Sealey all sitting at 157 right now if you're Penn State. You can't really go wrong with either of them. And I said it on the preview podcast with Jeff, I don't think there's that much that separates Joe Sealey from PJ Duke, actually. Sealey kind of dealt a bad hand coming into Penn State because he had an injury early on. Now that injury was undisclosed, but Sealey actually wasn't necessarily anticipated to wrestle. Cael Sanderson was on the record and said this, that we didn't really expect Sealey to wrestle this season because of his injury, but he worked his way back. He trained as hard as he could, and he ended up getting into some dual meets, and people were being very critical of him, but he was just coming off of an injury that was expected to keep him out for all of the season, most likely, and it didn't. So it's good to see that Sealey is back. He's healthy, and he can go toe-to-toe with PJ Duke. That is a battle that I will continue to monitor here, because I would like to see some separation from Duke. And I know with what he did on the freestyle circuit to win at the senior level, he did in the United States. I know he didn't do that well internationally, but then he wins a U20 title, and he competes at the U23 world title. So he's been a busy guy. Little bit of load management there, missing the Oklahoma duel as it was. But Joe Sealey's not that far behind. That's all I got to say. And I was surprised that it came down to a 2-1 slugfest. I was maybe expecting some more offense from PJ Duke, but that was that was for a championship. That's how you don't want to be the first one to make that mistake. So we'll see if Duke evolves his game a little bit there. But Joe Sealey, just another excellent wrestler that Penn State has on the depth chart, and would be a more than capable starter if he ended up being the guy for any sort of reason. But just another matchup to watch for the remainder of the season. Another matchup to watch in its own right is Cael Mirasola and Lucas Cochran, but Cael continues to create separation, where PJ Duke probably needs to create more separation in his own right. Cael Mirasola is doing that himself. Outstanding defense. Love the scramble that they had early on. Because I thought Lucas Cochran was going to get an early takedown against Mirasola, and Mirasola fought it off and then eventually worked his way back to get his own takedown. So just great movement from Cael Mirasola, and that's what we're all anticipating here from him. As being someone who's lighter at heavyweight, he's going to have to rely on technique, speed, skill. Lucas Cochran is also just getting into the heavyweight class. Okay, so this is where Cael has the upper hand, and I want to remind everybody that he's just frankly been training longer as a heavyweight. Do we wait and see if Lucas Cochran ends up closing the gap as he does more of the training, as he does more of the work, the technique that goes into being a true heavyweight rather than someone that just dabbles. Okay, because he was at 197 and then he would spotlight, he would get a spot start at the heavyweight spot, but he never was truly committed to being and training as a heavyweight, whereas Cole Mirasola was this past season during his red shirt. It was another close one. It was 3-1. So there's not much that separates them. I would continue to watch this one as well. It is not as finite. It is not as definitive as maybe, hey, anybody would like it to be. But Cole Mirasola is the starter until further notice. This is the second win so far that they've had because you had to wrestle off to get into the starting lineup against Oklahoma. We saw Cole be that starter. And then now we get a public wrestle off where he defeats Cochran again. Close, 3-1. So I'm not ready to write off and say that this is Cole's job. It is Cole's job to lose. He is leading, but it's not well out in front. Lucas Cochran is right there. And if he does all the right things, we'll continue to challenge Mirasola for that heavyweight spot. Now, we did see some other wrestle-offs go down. Levi Haines and William Henckel, Asher Cunningham, and Rocco Welsh. Takeaways from there, plus other results from the Army Black Knight Invitational. That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. We all love college football. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing else like it, but let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why you got to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can pull up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, you'll see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And if you've never been to a stadium before, if you've never been to a venue, Game Time is great because you get to see your point of view ahead of time. Select your seats, and you'll see your POV from those seats before you even have to buy them. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, we'll pick back up with some of the other wrestle-offs here because I thought it was great to see. Again, Penn State didn't wrestle all of these last year at the Black Knight Invitational, but they did this time around because if there were two Penn Staters that weren't necessarily battling for a lineup spot, Cael Sanderson said, we're going to let it go. We're not going to wrestle this. They did this year. So Levi Haines and William Henckel at 174. Decisive victory for Haines. 7-0 over Henckel. Henckel, kind of like a Nate Desmond, I think is overlooked in this class when you have PJ Duke and Marcus Blaze and Masanosuke Ono all join this class of 2025. And then in the process, Nate Desmond and William Henckel get overlooked. But that's how good Haines is. I mean, he's so tough to score on, but this is a great teacher-student type of moment. The senior that's battle-tested, that's really been through it all as Levi Haines, and then William Henckel, who coming in as a freshman, true freshman, that he's going to redshirt there, but Henckel, good solid spot to be in to learn from Levi Haines. And we could see this being a passing of the baton potentially at 174 because that spot opens wide. It opens up next season. Does Mitchell Mesenbrink bump up to 174? Maybe does somebody cut from 184, right? Because Asher Cunningham's going to be blocked by Rocco Welsh for the foreseeable future. So to be determined at the end of the day. But maybe the simple answer is you let the guy that's the backup right now behind Levi Haines just take over if he earns it, right? I'm not just here to say, oh, just give it right to him. But Henckel's in a good spot to immediately slide into 174 and potentially be a 4-year starter at that spot. So not an unusual margin of victory at all. Levi Haines, some of the best defense in the country, pound for pound. And then I've heard a lot of promise about Asher Cunningham. I mean, Jeff Byers has been on this show and talked up, and I'm not here to dismiss it. I'm here to say that this is very telling about Rocco Welsh because Welsh put an absolute clinic on Asher Cunningham. Now Cunningham was dealing with some blood timeouts and everything, so it wasn't the most favorable match for him. But a 13-5 decisive major decision type of victory there for Rocco Welsh should remind people that he is one of the best at 184. And between Angelo I don't want to hear anybody say that, oh, Rocco Welsh is fourth or fifth in this cluster, where it's Angelo Ferrari and Max McAnally, and then Aiden Sinclair gets in on the fun, right? And you have Zach Ryder. I'm not even sure that Zach Ryder should be grouped in this conversation at the moment right now. So let's take Ryder out. Let's bring Sinclair in. And between those four, I would not. Here's what I will say about that group of four. The last person that I'm putting in that number 4 spot is Rocco Welsh. I think that if you needed me to rank them, it's hard not to put Rocco Welsh at the number 1 spot in 184. And then I know Max McAnally lost to Aiden Sinclair. So I would go Welsh, Ferrari, McAnally, and Sinclair at this point of time subjectively. Okay. I know the results say one thing, but Welsh already being at an NCAA final in his own right at 174, then took the red shirt. Okay. He's the most experienced of the bunch. He's the most proven of the bunch. Okay. And then Max McAnally in his first full season has that second next bit of proof. And we know what Angelo Ferrari can do, right? Angelo Ferrari right out of the gate has been excellent. Okay. But it is there when you look at the power structure at 184, Welsh is certainly not the furthest from the top spot. And he has more of a case than I think of any. If when you're looking overall, Rocco Welsh has the most credence as far as why he should be the top ranked wrestler at 184 at this point in time. But Asher Cunningham, again, speaking volumes about the depth that Penn State has. Cunningham could easily be an All-American at 184, probably a fringe title contender again, because McAnally and Ferrari and Sinclair. And if you still want to throw Ryder there, okay, that's fine. But this 184 class right now, it's really, really top heavy. Eager to see how it all unfolds. Rocco Welsh is certainly not at the latter part of that top 4 or 5, give or take. Okay, so let's go through the results overall just kind of quickly, though. So remember, at 125, Nate Desmond ends up being the champion. Penn State takes 9 out of the 10 at the Army Black Knight Invitational. It would have been 10 for 10 had Nagao not had to injury default. But Desmond takes the title at 125 over Luke Lilledahl. 5-3, Marcus Blaze absolutely blazed the competition. Ends up getting a tech fall over Ethan Bergink of Army. He's a quality wrestler. Bergink's been around for a while for Army. 21-6 tech fall in 7 minutes. Kyson Garcia ends up taking 6th place at 133. Again, Aaron Nagao has to injury default against Braden Basile of Army. And Cael Sanderson ultimately did not place. He would be potentially that backup if Nagao can't go for a little bit of time. Shane Van Ness, business as usual, also had a Penn State wrestle-off going up against Connor Pierce, winning 14-7. So not quite a major decision, but taking the top 2 spots there at the 149 class. And I think people forget that Connor Pierce can hold his own in these middleweight classes as well. Dalton Perry was there. Looks like he had to medically forfeit himself and did not get to wrestle an entire tournament, but did have a tech fall right out of the gate. So PJ Duke gets that 2-1 victory. May I remind everybody over Joe Sealey at 157. Mitchell Mesenbrink gets a win, gets a fall, gets a pin over Gunnar Flipowitz of Army. So Mesenbrink, that's going to be key if he's going after the Hodge Trophy to get pins. Okay, tech falls are one thing, but pins, major consideration there for Mesenbrink. So you can see a little bit of an agenda there. Sam Beckett ends up taking 5th place at 165. Talked about 174 with Haines and Henckel. Talked about 184 in this segment with Welsh and Asher Cunningham. Connor Mirasola, absolute clinic, pin, tech fall to take 1st place at 197. And then at heavyweight, talked about it with Cole Mirasola winning he won that actually in the semifinal. So I should have cleared that from earlier, so please forgive me. But he beat Lucas Cochran 3-1 in the semifinal, went on to defeat Brady Colbert of Army 10-6 in the championship. And then Lucas Cochran gets a major decision, 12-2 in that third place matchup. Like I said, there's not much that separates Mirasola and Cochran at this point in time, but a win's a win in these wrestle-offs. So it doesn't matter, I guess, how you get to the finish line, just so long as you cross it, right? And that's where we're going to wrap things up on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Extremely grateful for each and every one of you checking out this episode. We'll see what's going to unfold here going forward as Penn State's depth on full display at the Army Black Knight Invitational, and it very well might come in handy. We'll get to talk to Cael Sanderson, not this week, but the following week because of holiday Thanksgiving break and the students being off of classes. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, if you're new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast, because we do this daily. All your favorite Penn State sports teams covered right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.